Yeah. Okay, so let us start for today's session. So till last class we were discussing about what do you mean by cons. That is in the first chapter what we have discussed. We discussed about if you are having a single data, how do we deal with, how do we define a single data, and how do we define the procedures. And we have seen what are the different ways. How do we define the procedure? Like by using lambda, how do we define it? And by the same thing, if you want to rewrite it by using let, how do we rewrite it? uh, and if you are having any arguments to be passed as a procedure, then how do we pass it? As well as if you have to return a procedure, how do we return the procedure? So these were the things which we have taken up during in the first chapter, right? Now moving on to the second chapter, we have started seeing with respect to data. So how do we do the abstraction with respect to data? So now instead of having a single data, now we are going to have multiple datas. So how do we define, that is how do you declare a particular variable with having more than one data? So for that we use constructor. So in short, the keyword for constructor, which is cons. So cons, by using cons, we can combine two words. That is two data can be combined together. So cons is a procedure which accepts two arguments. So first argument and the second argument. With respect to space, you can by using space, we can separate it. That is something like this, cons of 6, 9. So by using constructor, by the keyword used as cons, as a procedure which will accept two arguments. Okay, and this argument, it can be passed in any way. That is like it could be a single data, it could be there also, it could be multiple data, anything it could be. Okay, so in last class, before classes, previous classes, you were seeing if you have constructed the data by using constructor, that is by using cons, how do we retrieve it? That is like a selectors. How do we select each particular values? That is by using car and CDR. So the full form for car is, can someone try? What is the full form for car?
Content part of addressable register.
Content part of addressing register. That is usually we know when we are storing the data, it will be stored with respect to a stack concept. So the pointer wherever it is pointing to, that is considered to be as the starting value, the first value. So wherever it is pointing to, that is the starting address. That is what is considered to be as the car part. Similarly, the remaining part, if you want to take, that is the second element, if you have to take, we take it to be as CDR. So CDR, which is called to be as content decrement part of the register. So the same concept of the stack. So it is one step. If you decrement, you will be getting the second contents of the constructed values. So now in today's class, we will see with respect to, after that we have seen the rational number application, where do we use it, and how it has been defined, and how we can optimize those procedures. So those were the things which were done in the last class. So today's class, we will see with respect to the representation, that is the data structure, by using the box pointer representation or box pointer notation. How do we represent the data? As well as the output part we will see. And if time permits, we will take a look with respect to the procedures. Okay, so the constructor which will be represented by using this box pointer notation. So this box pointer notation, which is considered to be as the primitive object itself, which will help us to combine or glue two data together. So how do we represent this? By using this cons, that is the constructor. It is represented by as a box. So a box which has two partition. So first part will give us the first value or the first data. The second part will give us the second data. Okay, so it is shown here. So this is the box which will be taken up for a constructor. So constructor which will be having two parts. So that is the reason why a single box has been partitioned into two parts. The first part will be giving the first value, which is 6. So in this example, we have constructed cons 6, 9. So the first data is 6. The second data is 9. So first data you will be getting from the first part. That is by using the first value or by using the selector. If you are saying the selector, then we will be getting, by using car, we will be able to retrieve the first value 6. The second data which has been stored by using this pointer, which is 9, which is a single data. That's the reason why it has been put in a single box, single data. But if you have to select this 9, we use the selector CDR. Okay, so this is how a constructor is being represented in this by using this box pointer representation. So similarly, if you are asked to how do we represent this cons of cons 1, 2, cons 3, 4. So how is it? So by using constructor, we have multiple multiple data has been taken up. So when we are saying multiple data for this constructor, that is for our first constructor, this entire thing is considered to be as the first operand or the first argument. Argument 1 we can say. This is taken to be as the second argument. So first argument, second argument. So how do we represent this? So we will have a box with two partitions. So first partition is again another cons. So again another cons means again you will be having another box coming into picture. So from this we have to store the value 1 and 2. So 1 and 2, which are two separate a single data it is. So that is the reason why we have put within a single box. Okay. So the first part, that is the first cons, the data what we are going to have is again another cons. So that is by one box which has been partitioned again and which will be storing the first data 1, the second data 2. Now coming to the second argument is again another cons. So again a box with two partitions where the first value of that box is value 3, data 3, and the second value is data 4. Right? And this we should have a pointer, that is, which is this pointer will tell us that this is the second data. Okay. So are you able to make up how we are drawing this box pointer representation? So this is just the data structure. So by using this, you can easily make out how the outputs would be. So just first let us see the box pointer representation and then we'll come back with the output. How do we represent the output? Okay. Coming to the second example. Next example. Cons of cons 1, cons 2, 3. Closed or two cons constructors. Again we have a 4. Right? So how do we take up? For the outer cons, that is the first cons, this is taken to be as the first argument 1. So see the brackets where it is getting closed and accordingly you have to take it up. So this 4 is considered to be as the argument 2. Right? So you can draw the box. First box whose first argument is again another cons and another cons inside. Right? So first let us expand with the argument 1. So argument 1, when we see, it is again a constructor. So again a box which has two partitions. So in this, the first partition is going to give us the data 1. So whenever we are having a data, it is put in a single box. So it is represented as a single box. That means like it's like a one single space. The second argument for this is what? The second argument for this is again a constructor. So again a constructor means again a box with two partitions whose first argument is a data which is 2. Second argument is another data which is 3. Now, this is nothing but this is the second part of this one, this box. So this pointer will be taking care, or this pointer will help us retrieve these contents. Okay. So we are done with argument 1. Now if you see with the argument 2 for the first cons, what is the argument 2 for the first cons? It's a single data. So we need a single box which will help us store the value 4. Okay. Fine. So now we can even have the cons represented in this way. Like if you are having a sequence of cons. So sequence of cons means where the first cons is having a single value and its second argument is again a constructor. For this cons, the first argument is value 2 and the second argument is again a constructor. For the third cons, the first value is value 3 and the second argument is again a constructor. For the fourth cons, the first value is 4 and the second argument is nil. So nil means which is nothing but if you don't want any value to be represented for this cons, then we can take it to be as a nil. Okay, so already you have seen this. So if you are having a sequence of cons, let us see how the box pointer representation would be. So first, for first cons, the first value is 1. The second part is again a constructor for which the first value is 2. Again, the second argument is again a constructor for which the value is 3. And the second argument is again a constructor for which the value is 4. The last one, it is nil. So nil will be represented by using a slash in the box. Okay, so this is how we represent a nil for when you are using this box pointer representation. Whenever we are having a sequence of cons, we can even say it to be as a list. You have already seen this, right? So sequence of cons or nested cons, we can say it to be as, we can even call it to be as a list. That too, a sequence of cons or nested cons which end with nil is what we call it to be as list. Always keep this in mind. A sequence of cons or nested cons which end with a nil, something like this, which we can even call this to be as a list. So the syntax for list would be list, first argument, second argument, so on. By default, it will be having a nil at the end. The last argument after an, whatever you have, if you are, you don't have to explicitly mention it to be as nil. By default, the nil will be inserted. The equivalent of list, this list is nothing but sequence of cons. So cons of argument 1, cons of argument 2, cons of argument 3, so on up to cons of argument n, and here which ends with nil. So you can write, if you are having a constructor which ends with nil, you can even write it by using list. If you are using list, by default, the last argument will be, the last one will be nil. You don't have to explicitly write it. By default, that will be the value which you will be having it. Okay. So the same example, cons of 1, cons of 2, cons of 3, cons 4, nil. Opening brackets, hope all of you know this. So accordingly, we have to close. So at the end, I have closed all the brackets, constructors, whatever brackets we have opened for constructors, everything has been closed at the end. Now the box pointer representation you have already seen. So the same thing, instead of writing like this, cons of 1, cons of 2, I can even write it to be as list 1, 2, 3, 4. Indirectly, it is nothing but it is cons of 1, cons of 2, cons of 3, cons 4 and nil. So the box pointer representation for list 1, 2, 3, 4 will also remain same. So it is nothing but it will be constructed back with when you are using constructors, and when it is getting formed, it will be formed with respect to the same constructor of 1. So first argument will be 1. Second argument is again a constructor. So the value is 2. Again, the second argument is again a constructor. Its first value is a single data 3. And the second argument is again a constructor whose first argument is 4, a single value 4, and which ends with a nil. So we can write this representation by using list or cons. For list, inbuilt, you will be having a nil at the end. You just have to write all the values, whatever arguments you want. That is the only thing which you have to specify. By using cons, you have to explicitly write a nil. Okay. So let us start seeing the output part, how the output we would be writing it. And then we'll just go back with the other examples for which we have already seen the box pointer presentation. So cons of 1, cons of 2, cons of 3, cons 4 and nil, which I have already told, which we can write it with respect to list also. So list 1, 2, 3, 4. Either of this way if you are writing, if you see the box pointer presentation, it is sequence of constructors. So when you are having this sort of sequence of constructors, everything whatever you get, everything will be written within a single bracket. So sequence of cons, if this sequence of cons, this format if you get, everything you will be writing within a single bracket. So now start looking into each argument. So the first data what you are having, it's a single data. So that could be written within this, so which is 1. The second box, which is again a single data, so it will be written after a space. The third argument, which is value 3, that is also a single data, so it will be written within this. Now the fourth one, which is value 4, that is also a single data, so that will be written after a space. So all the data, whatever here if you are having the sequence of cons which ended with nil, if this is the representation what you are going to have, whenever you have this sort of box pointer presentation, the output will be represented as a single quote, which will be which you can say to be as a list or okay. Anyways, we'll see it later what the single quote means. So by using the single quote, and everything will be put within a single bracket, which means that all these data are like your array elements, a sequence of elements which are being stored in a continuous fashion, in a continuous memory location. Okay, here each content is each single data. So this is how the output has been represented. Okay. So let us see for this first example, which we had seen the box pointer presentation. For this already we have seen the box pointer presentation. So cons, this is our first argument. This is our second argument, right? So first cons was the box pointer presentation, which we have already drawn in the previous slide. Hope you remember. So now let us see. Here we don't have any nil. Okay, by default we don't have any nil. So that means we have constructed it by using a constructor itself, by using cons. So how the output would be represented is, you just see the first one, this is the starting pointer. So since we have multiple boxes, so we have to tell which one is the starting box. So by using this pointer, we will be able to tell that this is our starting box. So similarly, this one, I forgot to tell that. So when we have multiple boxes, which one is the starting box we have to tell. So for that, this arrow is which will be this arrow which is considered to be as a pointer, starting pointer, which will be helping us tell that this is the starting box which we have to start off with. So if you see from the starting, if you see here, everything, this two boxes, it's like a sequence, right? So first box and again another box. So this content, we can say it to be as a sequence of elements, right? So I just for convenience sake, what I have just renamed this part to be as X. This portion I just renamed it to be as X. So first data, what I am having is X, I have just renamed. And this is a sequence. So whenever we have a sequence of contents, what do? We write within a single bracket, right? So within the single bracket, the first element what we have is X. I just renamed it. We will expand it later. So first the content argument which we have is X. If you see for the second box, the next argument is 3 and the second argument for that second box is 4. It is not ending with nil. So by seeing the output, to understand that there is no nil, how it is interpreted is by using this dot. So if you have to say that there is no nil at the end, by seeing this dot, it is understood that this has been formed by using the constructor and there is no nil at the end. Is it clear? So first, if you see, there is a sequence of boxes. From the first box, we are getting the first argument. It is pointing to another box. But for our convenience, what I have done is, first I have represented this to be as X. I just renamed this box to be as X. So from this box, my first argument, whatever I'm going to have is X. And from the other one is also is the cons. So I can say, by seeing this, it's a box pointer representation. I can say that this is a sequence of cons. So whenever there is a sequence of cons getting formed, constructor, we will be having the output written within a single brackets. So the first argument, which is X, the second argument, which is 3. So within the single bracket, the first one is X, the second one is, next one is 3. After that, we have another value which is 4. There is no nil at the end. So to identify there is no nil, by seeing the output itself, you can understand that this has been formed by using this cons 3, 4. So this dot is going to help us tell this. This never means that it is 3.4. It means that the first value is 3. We have constructed it, but we have glued two data together by using constructor. So first data is 3. The second part of it is 4. For telling that this dot has been used. Now coming to the X. So let us expand this X. So what is this X? X is nothing but it is cons 1, 2, right? So when we are saying we have constructed it by using cons, how the output would be? The output would be nothing but first value is 1, second value is 2. So by using this dot, we can say that it is a constructor. Will be written to be as 1 dot 2. Okay. Now, this X, it is another constructor, right? So since this is an other constructor, there is no sequence. So what happens? We will be putting it within the bracket. So that is how the entire output, if you see, it will be like everything within a single bracket. As a first argument, if you see, which is another cons. It's not a single data, it's an other cons. So since it is a cons, the output would be put within a bracket because there are chances that it could be a sequence of it could be another list. So to identify that, we have to put within the brackets. So that is how the output representation for this has been done.
Ma'am?
Yeah.
Ma'am, for the constructor part, there are two boxes in one cell because the cons constructor takes two arguments. Whereas the list, it is not necessarily two. it can take any number of values.
It can take
Even
any number of it can take any number of values.
But why it is having two boxes in one cell, ma'am? Like a
Because list is nothing but it is
it is
from the user side. When you are saying list, but how it is getting converted is it is converted to sequence of cons like this.
okay.
It will
List
be
is
converted like
developed on constructor.
it will be it will be converted to cons.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that's why the output box pointer representation will be in this way. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Last class, someone was asking why this 3, 4 is not within brackets. This is the reason. Why? Because it's in the sequence of cons format. So whenever your structure, if you are getting sequence of cons, everything will be put within the single brackets. Okay. Okay. Before going for this, let us see the previous examples. Output part. And then we will see with the other one. Yeah, this we have already discussed. Yeah, let us see for this one how the output would be. This is the box pointer representation for this. So how do we write the output for this? This is our starting part. So from the starting, if you see, we have only a single box. There is no sequence, right? Since there is no sequence also, everything will be put within. Whenever there is a cons, we will be having, it is understood that it is multiple things are going to come together. So everything will be put within the brackets. Now, if I say the first data, if I just rename it by using X, so I will be having X. After that, what is the second content what I'm having? It is a single data. So whenever I have a single data and it is not ending with nil, what it says, I will be having a dot. I will be having a dot and then followed by 4. Right? Now let us expand with this X. So what is my X? X, if you see, it is an other sequence of cons coming into picture. Right? So sequence of cons coming into picture. So how do I write? Whenever there is a sequence of cons, it will be written within a single quotes, which is the first argument is value 1. Again, next part it's a cons. So again, it's another box pointer. So which will be 2. After that, the second argument is a single data 3 and there is no nil. So that means since I have to just tell there is no nil at the end, it is represented by using a dot. So this will be the output representation for this X all alone. So everything put together, if I write, the output would be nothing but within my single bracket and other brackets get opened 1, 2, dot, because there is no nil, 3, close the bracket, a dot, other dot, because there is no nil, this is a dot, value 4, close the brackets. This is how the output representation for this would be. Okay. So if you are given the output representation, you should be in a position to understand how it has been constructed. If you are given a box pointer representation, then also you should be in a position to tell how we have written this one as well as this output, how the output would be.
Ma'am?
Yeah.
Audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Ma'am. Only because of space we can distinguish that it is a separate constructor, ma'am. Because like we can interpret it as 12 also, no, ma'am. Like there is a space, of course, but then only that is the distinguishing factor, no, ma'am.
Yeah, space is the one which we separate the data. If it is 12, it will be 12 together. 1, 2 together it will be.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
If say for instead of this 1, if it is say 15, your output would be like 15 space 2. 15 space the second element space dot space 3. Everything here we don't use any other operators for as a separator. Everything is a space is the one which we use as a separator. Okay. We have seen all these cases.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. So now let us see now by using for this one how it would be. So till now I was just writing everything in terms of cons, right? So the same list I have written list. For this list, this is my first argument. This is my second argument. When I am saying list, by default, nil is there. Nil which says that this is the last, this is end of this sequence. That is what it means. So nil is a keyword. Okay, primitive data it is. So now, before I draw this box pointer representation, it will be easy if I reconstruct it by writing in the form of cons. So I can say that it could be interpreted as cons of, this is my first argument. The second part is again a cons of cons 3, 4. There is no more element. So for this cons, the last element will be nothing but nil. I'm closing all the cons, both the cons. Okay. So I have rewritten this list by using sequence of cons. So cons of cons 1, 2, cons of cons 3, 4. For this, the last argument will be nothing but nil. So now it is easy for you to draw the box pointer. So whenever we say a cons, you will have a box separated by as a 2 partitions. Oh, animation problem. Okay. So first cons. So when I'm saying first cons, what happens? This box would be generated. This box would have been generated where the first part is again a cons 1, 2. So again another box which is having the value data 1 and 2. So 1 is since it is a single data, I have put within a single box. 2 is also a single data that is put within a single box. The second part is nothing but again another cons. So another box where you are having cons of 3, 4. So another box which will first argument which will give the value 3 single data. Similarly, the second argument which is going to give a single data 4. And for this cons, the second argument is nothing but which is nil. So which is represented by using a slash. So cross to represent the end of it. So now try how the output would be. How your output would be. So if you see, this is a sequence of cons. So we will have, I'll write here, we will have a single bracket. Within this single bracket, I'll just name this to be as X and Y. You can directly write if you're comfortable. And there is a nil. So it is understood that it is not done with respect to, there is an end of it. So I don't have to put a dot. So it will be just X and Y. Okay. Now if I expand this X part, So if you see the X part, which is another box with value 1 and 2. So which will be 1, 2. For this box, do you have nil? We don't have any nil. So it is, so how do we represent? This will be represented by using a dot. Coming to the Y part, Y again, it is another cons. So which will be within the bracket. So which is 3, 4. And there is no nil. And this has been formed with a cons. So you will have a dot here. Close the bracket. So this will be the output representation for this one. So xy 1.2, 3.4. Okay.
Ma'am,
Huh.
I was thinking that brackets won't come for 3 and 4, like it will be like 3.4.
No. See, from here,
That will be possible.
that will be possible if it is, say, if your box
Directly,
pointer
like
is,
instead of another cons, if we had not null value, if we had directly 3 and 4, that will come, ma'am.
that will come in here itself. If you are having instead of y, if I am having 3 here, and instead of nil, if you are having 4 here, then what you said, you will be getting it.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Yeah, understood, ma'am. Thank you.
Hmm. So one more example. Cons 1, cons 2, 3, and 4. Yeah, previous one. First. Again another cons. So 1. Again a sequence. So everything comes within the bracket. So 2.3. There is no nil for the second one. For the outer one, it was 4. This already we have discussed. So complete put together, it will be like this. 1 space 2 space dot 3. How about this one? So if I have to put it in by using another variable name, I can say that define is the same keyword, same way. So define x cons 3 list 7, 8, 9. First try drawing the box point representation. So cons of 3. So for this cons, this is my first value. This is my second one. So how it will be? If you want, you can rewrite this list using sequence of cons. That is also fine. So it will be written to be as cons of 3. If I expand this list, it will be nothing but cons of 7.
But we can't do that, right? Because in list we need not put the dot, but if we are using cons, we have to put dot. Which
Dot. You see in this case, you see how it will come. See, that's why I'm saying first draw the box point representation. Cons of 8. So just by seeing cons, you can't always say you will have a dot. Cons of 9. There is no more, so nil, right? So close everything. Whatever I have rewritten is correct, right? cons of 3. So this list I have expanded it in this way till here. So cons of 7, cons of 8, cons of 9, nil. Closing of all the brackets. Now draw the box pointer. It will be first box. This is my starting part. So arrow point. So for this cons, which is the first value is 3. You can put this within the box. I'm just showing it. Second one, which is another cons. Which is having the value 7. You can draw the box for 7. For this, which is another cons. The first argument is 8. Next is again another cons. Which is 9. And at the end, there is no more, so nil. This is a slanting. It came somewhat. This is the box which you will be getting it, right? Box point representation. Agree? So now tell what will be the output for this. How the output would be?
No, it will be a list 3, 7, 8, 9.
It will be list 3, 7, 8, 9. Within a single bracket.
Yes, ma'am.
7, space separated. 7, 8, and 9. Okay. I'll just erase this. So let's see the next example. For this one, define by list 3, cons 7, 8, and 9. How the box pointer would be? First draw the box pointer. So list 3. So already we know whenever we say list, which is sequence of cons. So list, first one is a single value. So you can put within boxes. So this first one is single value, which is 3. Second one is cons 7, 8. So I will not get a single value. It will be again pointing to another box, whose first argument is 7. Second argument is 8. Okay. From this, it is list 3. This is my second argument of my list. Third argument is 9. So, which is 9. And since it is list, by default, there is a nil. So, you will have a nil mentioned here. So now if you see, this
Output will be like 3, 7, 8, 9. Where 7 and 8 will be in brackets.
Yes. The output would be within 3, 7, 8 within bracket. So 7 and 8. And there is no nil for this. So it will be, there will be a dot. So 7 space dot space 8 it will be. And then 9. Then this one. Closing of it. Okay. So clear? So last one more. This is very easy for if it is clear. Cons 3, cons 6 and nil. Which I can say it to be as list 3, 6. Right? So list 3, 6. So what will be the output for this?
Yes, ma'am.
Bracket
3
3.
space 6 in brackets.
So it will be like this. So 3, 6. Will there be any dot?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Not required because there is a nil. Yeah, correct. So we'll stop with this. We'll continue with the selectors in the next class for the same example. Okay, thank you, students.
Thank you, Sriba.
Thank you.